The Lost Art Project Veterans Voices would like to thank our sponsors. Saddleback Leather Company, saddlebackleather.com. They will fight over it when you are dead.
Brav, allcoin.brav.co. Preserving the stories behind your challenge coins.
Honor Dog Designs. Find them at honordogdesigns.com. Swag made just for you. Tinker Federal Credit Union. Visit tinkerfcu.org to learn more about their military rewards program. This episode is brought to you by the Marine Corps League. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Semper Fidelis. From infantry to administration, everyone has a story. We are here to preserve the stories of our nation's heroes. The Lost Art Project Veterans Voices. Preserving voices. Protecting legacies.
Yay! Hello, everybody. Today I'm Dee Galvin. I'm here recording Veterans Voices to honor my husband, Dana Bruce Galvin, who passed away, and he was a Marine. And today we're interviewing Jim Chambers from the Air Force. Good morning, Jim. I think it's afternoon where you are, so good day. And we'll just start off with talking about your childhood and how that went.
Okay, well, glad to be here, Dee. Thank you. Looks like a fantastic project that you all have. I was the seventh child, so 9 mouths to feed. Grew up in an 837 square foot house, one bathroom. You learned how to wait. I have 4 sisters, 2 brothers, but being the last one, I'll be 80 years old next year. So most of them are gone right now, and loving life. I learned to share things. I learned that you didn't know you didn't have money. You didn't know that you grew up poor. You just grew up like everybody else around you in your neighborhood and so forth. So I had a good childhood. My parents went out of their way to make me feel special and to buy me things or get me things when I needed them at key points in my life. So no complaints there. Still have great relationships with my brothers and sisters that are still living. In fact, I was just out on the West Coast in Oregon. Seeing some of them a couple weeks ago. So.
Nice. And so what shaped your decision to serve?
I was hanging out with some of the wrong people in high school. And if you've ever seen the movie American Graffiti, that's my life. That movie is about Modesto, California. In the late 60s, mid to late 60s. And that's literally how I grew up. If you watch that movie, it's very entertaining, but it's very, very realistic as well. And I ended up with some wrong people, and they were starting to get into trouble. They had guns and knives and things that fortunately I was smart enough to realize I didn't want to be a part of. And the only way out of town for me was military, going to college or something. Just wasn't an option in our family. In fact, no one had ever went to college, my brothers and sisters. Ultimately, I was the first one to get a bachelor's degree out of all the children, and my children were the first grandchildren to get their college degrees. So I went to get away from a bad situation and literally grew up in the United States Air Force, active duty the entire time. So.
Wow. And so how was boot camp over there for you?
It wasn't fun. I can't say that. But I did my share. I only remember getting written up a couple of times for not marching very well. They said I marched like a duck. And so they called me out and put me in front of the squadron and made me walk and quack like a duck and so forth. So I think they enjoyed us because our TIs, we had a Buck Sergeant TI, he's an E4, and we were his first group, and we had a Tech Sergeant, an E6, and we were his last group. So he was having a lot of fun with us, and the new guy didn't know what to expect, and they took it out on us, I think. But we survived it and went from boot camp, which was, of course, Lackland, down in Texas, took a train, didn't have a lot of airplanes flying around yet in the military, took a train from Lackland Air Force Base to Chicago, and then down south about 100 miles to Rantoul, Illinois, where my first technical school was, and stayed there from December of 66 until May of 67 in tech school in Illinois. And then actually drove to California, my first station.
Do you have any good stories from boot camp?
Not really. Probably the thing that made the biggest impression on me was when one of our guys, we were all under inspection and so forth. We lived in what was called the Korean dorms. So the old ones, they didn't have anything fancy. They didn't have closets or anything. You had a box, and all of your stuff had to fit in that box. If it didn't, you didn't own it. And that box sat at the end of your bed. And of course, they would come in, the TIs, and it was very precise how everything should be laid out. TIs would sneak into the dorm, and they'd grab 4 or 5 boxes and just shake them all up and never open them. And then now the inspection started, and you can imagine when your box gets opened and it's a mess and you knew it wasn't before. Well, that was such a traumatic event that we had a guy that actually had a heart attack right there in the midst of an inspection when they opened his box and it was a mess. They carried him out. He survived it, but he left boot camp.
Oh,
They discharged him for medical reasons. We might have had a role in lessening some of that because it was a shock. And that was life or death when you were in boot camp. At least it felt that way to us.
Wow, that's hardcore back then. And how about your military training? What was that like?
I love technical school, very, very technical, a lot of electrical wiring diagrams and transistors and things like that. I was in aircraft accessories all my life, and whether that was engines on an airplane or whether it was support equipment that was specially designed for technical aircraft and so forth. But I really enjoyed that, loved it, excelled at it, graduated with honors from everything that I went to. Went on to PME. That didn't exist in my first 4 years. They really weren't doing junior NCO training to teach you leadership and things like that. I achieved E5 Staff Sergeant in my first 4-year enlistment, and it was at that time, really, that was 1970 by then, when they started what we call PME, Professional Military Education, and they started it at the E4 level. Well, I was an E5, so I didn't get to go to that. So I had no PME until I came up as a brand new E6, and that was leadership school, I guess is what we called it, NCO leadership school. And that's when they sent us to another place. I went to, a base in in Texas that is now closed. I can't even remember the name of the base, but went there for 6 weeks. So it was a long school, but it was very worthwhile. And they taught things, not just military education and NCO responsibilities and leadership, but you got to take extra things. And one of them was speed reading. So I literally learned how to do speed reading in a class that they taught at that academy. Changed my life. It changed how I read things. I was able to consume large amounts of data and things quickly, whether it was technical data or whether it was just a book I was reading. It made a real difference in my life thanks to military education. At least that was the E5, E6, and E7 school. So if you were any one of those grades, that was the school you would go to if you got picked by your commander to go. So very fortunate to go to that. My next PME, of course, I was doing all the correspondence courses. I assumed the rest of the services as well had correspondence and live or in-person trainings. So I took all the correspondence courses because you got credit for that. It counted toward promotion. So I did all of the written ones. So I did as an E7, I was eligible to do the written E8 and E9 course, the senior NCO course. So I took that by correspondence. And then as I was on my way to, I was going to Aviano, Italy, I got a line number for E8. and put it on right after I got there. So then I got to go in residence to that course. And that course was, of course, down at Maxwell, where the Air Force's PME Center is. And gosh, I can't remember now. I think that was 12 or 13 weeks that I went to the senior NCO course. And it was good. I already knew most of the material because I'd taken all the correspondence, but it was great for creating relationships. In fact, I met a guy there who was a first sergeant, and in time, he rotated through Aviano Air Base as the first sergeant. So I already knew him, had a great relationship with him. I enjoyed PME. It really lifted me up. It taught me a lot, really gave me a lot of great leadership information and all that I used. And it's still one of the many reasons that I achieved the top enlisted rank, E9, as the Air Force calls it, Chief Master Sergeant, because of the schooling that I had, and I was able to apply that.
So you did a lot of technical stuff, it sounds like, electronics, and that was the training you chose, right?
I didn't choose it. In those days, they chose it for you.
Oh, wow.
There was no choice for an AFSC, as we called it, Air Force Specialty Code training. They put you based upon your, what is that test that we took when we first got started? And it gave you aptitude scores. And two of those were mechanical and electrical. I scored very highly in both mechanical and electrical. So they put me into that course because it required really high scores, because they were going to do transistors and mechanical things like air compressors as well. So I got to deal with electronics and I got to deal with mechanical things in my career field. And it was a perfect fit. I loved it. I truly enjoyed my career field. Got to spend a lot of time with the aircraft and on the aircraft, as well as I continued to rank up and supervise different areas of that. One of them that I was most proud of was when I achieved E9, they had a slot for an E9, but they didn't have an E9 to fill it. So they immediately moved me when I was first selected to become an E9 Chief Master Sergeant to be what was called the Propulsion Branch Chief. That was a title. So I was given a branch that worked on all the aircraft engines for all the tankers and all the bombers at Castle Air Force Base. And my branch, had over 350 people in it. And back in those days, a squadron had about 350 people. So it was an extraordinary challenge and an extraordinary honor to get picked to run a branch that size. And I think that was one of the many reasons I was chosen to go to the Pentagon. They were looking for somebody that had a very varied technical and leadership and management background in their career at that point. And I was approaching 20 years. I had achieved E9, I guess that was at about 18, 19 years. And while I was in that branch, running that branch then, I was chosen, out of 3 people were chosen worldwide to go to the Pentagon and become a program manager for worldwide programs at the Pentagon. And I'm convinced that branch, working as the Propulsion Branch Chief, was one of the reasons, because it was a significant responsibility. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my entire career. I loved everything I got to do. We'll probably get to that point where we talk about why did you leave or something. But
yes.
I left. I was at the Pentagon. I was doing things that lieutenant colonels and colonels were doing. In fact, I was in a billet that was for a 1-star general. So the position that they took me to the Pentagon didn't really exist, but they knew they needed it, if you can understand that. The Manning documents didn't provide for an E9. There just wasn't enough. Only 1% of the Air Force could be in the grade of E9. That's a public law. In fact, it applies to all the services. So 1% can be E9s, 2% can be E8s, and then E7s and down, of course, the significantly more percentage that are allowed by law. So they didn't have enough E9 slots to fill all of the jobs that they wanted an E9 with a varied background to do. So they put me in a general officer's position. So that was cool. I had 1-star protocol at the Pentagon. So colonels and down, full colonels, 06s, had to go to a doctor in the Pentagon. I mean, couldn't go in the Pentagon. They had to go to Andrews Air Force Base. Sorry. So they had to leave the Pentagon to go for a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment or anything like that. But 1-star generals and up, they got a private doctor in the Pentagon. So because I was in a 1-star billet, here I am, a chief master sergeant. I had my own doctor and dentist in the Pentagon. I was, quote, too important to leave the Pentagon for a medical appointment. So it was a source of angst for some 06s. It was a source of laughter and a really good joke between us for some who weren't so uptight, But it was extraordinary. I had a lot of fun with it. I had a lot of fun at the Pentagon. I got to travel the world. One of the reasons I left the Pentagon is I was TDY so much. I had a full-time job. I actually had 2 jobs at the Pentagon. One was managing research and development programs, and I had lots of money, hundreds of millions of dollars in that. Tens of millions was common money at that point. And my job was to manage it. But I was gone so much, it was hard to manage it because I was missing a lot of meetings. They had a lot of meetings at the Pentagon. So what they do is they steal your money while you're gone. So I would be TDY doing my aircraft maintenance job, going out to the bases. My 3-star would just grab me up and say, come on, Chief, we're going to Korea. Come on, Chief, we're going to wherever in Europe or something. And we'd leave. And we'd be gone anywhere from 5 to 10 days max. And then I'm back. And when I get back, then I'd find out, well, they had these groups had a meeting and they needed some extra money. And you weren't spending your money as fast as they thought you should. So they would transfer some of my money out of my programs. And now when I got back, I spent all my time trying to get my money back.
Oh, no.
So it was frustrating. I enjoyed it. We did a lot of really cool things. The R&D money was for future equipment, future systems equipment for aircraft. And that was what I was in charge of developing the future for that. And at the same time, I still had my aircraft maintenance job as the chief. And that's where the 3-star would grab me up. We had a great relationship. I loved that man. And he would take me with him. So he'd go see all the bigwigs on the base and have all those meetings. They'd all flock in there to see him. And he'd say, go down the flight line, find out what's really going on around here, Chief. And I'd go down and talk to all the enlisted people who would talk to me and tell me all the things that were great and all the things that weren't so great. And then we'd get together and have that meeting with the base or the wings leadership before we left. Here's some of the things I'm hearing. Here's some things you might want to check on, before it turns into something you don't like. And we did that around the world. So on his schedule, he decided when I was coming and going, I only had maybe 6 or 7 TDYs a year that were mine, that I set up, meetings I set up. People would come in and so forth, or I would go to the logistics centers all around the United States, and we would hit one of those every quarter, had meetings with all the top logistics people and so forth. So loved my job, but I actually left my job because I was so disappointed that I was finding a lot of senior officers, or I called them senior, field grade officers, 04s through 06, that were in the Pentagon, but they weren't capable of handling a job in the Pentagon. There were people that were taken out of the operations, the field, because they couldn't handle a job out there. They couldn't do the job that was needed. And they brought them to the Pentagon and they gave them some meaningless thing to do until they retired. That always torqued me off a little bit. I was disappointed with the Air Force for not dealing with them. It's just that they hadn't done anything wrong. You couldn't court-martial them or do something like that because they just weren't capable of doing their job. So they got an OER, or if they were enlisted performance report, an EPR. They got a really low one, on a scale of, like we had a scale of 1 to 9, I guess it was back in those days. If you got a 7, you were done. You were not going to be promoted ever. So you could wait your time out, and let's say maybe you were an E6 or an E7. You're never going to see E7 or E8 with a 7 in your performance report. So they would let them stay until 20 years, and then they were forced out. So officers were the same way. So if you had an officer that couldn't handle the job that they wanted him to do out in the field, they would hide him somewhere at a major command headquarters or at the Pentagon, and then they would be forced out when they were eligible to retire. That bothered me. I just thought that system needed to be a little stronger, a little more, determined perhaps, and terminate people if they couldn't do the job. But that wasn't my say so. I didn't make those kinds of judgments or decisions and all. So ultimately, I left because I wanted to be around. I wanted to be in an environment where I could excel. I couldn't get promoted again. E9 is E9. There is no E10 to go to. So I left. I left the Pentagon after just a little over 4 years.
You left by choice? That was
Yeah.
when you. Oh, that's when you left.
I could have stayed 33 years if I wanted to. I left at 23 years because I just didn't want to stay in that system anymore. I wanted to go someplace where I could grow and excel. And that's why I entered national security. When I did, I had all the clearances. I was already, written in on any kind of program you can imagine, from nuclear weapons design to others. And so I was an attractive resume, if you will. And I had several companies that wanted me to come work with them in national security, and got to choose one. Took 6 months off between my retirement and when I chose to get started in the summer of 1990. That was the summer of 90. I started as a civilian, chose not to go into government, as a GS or something like that, because they got too many rules over there that I didn't like. But on the civilian side, I was free to excel and rise. And I did that very quickly. I became an executive in the national security arena, did a lot of things that to this day I still can't talk about because they were all classified. But I enjoyed what I got to do. I had global impact, worldwide impact in a lot of places for the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, Department of State. They were all my customers. So the president's cabinet was my customers. We responded to all the secretaries, and I had contracts across all of that I managed and was the spokesperson for and the manager for. So truly enjoyed all of that.
That was a private company after you left the service, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Retired out of the Pentagon. That was cool. Because I had my 4-star, who had been my 3-star, the guy that I ran around the world with, got his 4th star, and he said, "Chief, when you retire, I'm coming back and do it." And I said, "Okay, I'll let you know." And he did. When I retired, I had a 4-star retirement. And of course, every time a 4-star comes to the building, all the 1, 2, and 3 stars all flock around because, they need recognition, and they need that 4-star to know that they're still doing something important. So I had 16 general officers at my retirement when I retired at the Pentagon. It's crazy.
Because they just wanted to be seen. That's so funny. I didn't know how
Yeah. There was like 3 there that actually came for me, and the others came because the 4-star came back to the room,
Oh, man.
It was funny. But I loved it. It was a great retirement. Had a great time. Had a great staff there that I got to work with. Many of them were lieutenant colonels and majors that I worked really closely with in the Pentagon, and they were good. And of course, they all retired as colonels, full colonels, 1 stars and 2 stars because they were that good. They went on. I retired. They stayed and went on to get promoted to be general officers. So, in fact, when I was traveling the world in national security, one of the places I had to go was all the Air Force bases in Europe, from base to base to base. I was actually traveling with my wife, who was active duty, and I was not active duty. I was retired in national security.
Oh, wait, we got to rewind how you met your wife in the service, because that's like the coolest story ever.
I'll do that. But anyway, I got to go see some of those 2-stars that I had worked with in the Pentagon as lieutenant colonels and majors and so forth. So it was cool. How I met my wife, gosh, I was leaving. I was in that propulsion branch job out at Castle Air Force Base in California, being reassigned to the Pentagon. And so I was going on PCS. And my wife had been working at a branch level in aircraft maintenance in Spain, and she was being reassigned to headquarters U.S. Air Force Europe in Ramstein. And they told both of us, "Hey, there's a meeting you need to go to. It's in Texas. We need you to go to this meeting in San Antonio, Texas. It's going to be 2 weeks long. Plan to stay the whole 2 weeks and then come to your job, after that meeting." So it was a little meeting while you were en route. And she happened to be, when I got there, I found out I was chairing the meeting. Well, I'd never been to the meeting, didn't even know what it was. But because I was the guy at the Pentagon, or almost at the Pentagon, I was in charge of it too. There were about 500 enlisted people in that meeting, and then a whole bunch of GS, 12, 13, 14s from the logistics area. And we were at a Air Force Logistics Center in San Antonio. And there were 2 females in that room, 2. Now, I had been, back in when I was a tech sergeant, I had been an instructor in our technical school. And I was very familiar with the washout rate for females in aircraft maintenance. Most just simply didn't make it. In fact, about 80% never got out of tech school, never even got to the field. And when they got to the field and they made it through tech school and so forth, the men didn't want them there. Now, we're talking the 1980s. They simply didn't want them there. And we didn't have females in aircraft maintenance. It was a man's world. And it was a very difficult time from about 1974 to 1984. It was a really difficult transition in aircraft maintenance as we flooded the field, because now it was an all-volunteer force. We flooded the field with females, and most didn't make it. We're talking 90% didn't make it. They either didn't make it through tech school, or they didn't make it once they got into the field, and they transferred out of aircraft maintenance, went into, admin or computers or something else, but definitely not on the flight line, definitely not working on aircraft maintenance and equipment and so forth. And so when I get to this meeting and there's 2 females, I got to talk to them. I need to know what they're made out of. How did those 2 make it all the way to E7? Because they were E7s now, the beginning of senior NCOs, 7, 8, 9. And I had to figure out what they were made out of. How did they survive all of that stuff and make it to this meeting? Because this is a pretty prestigious meeting where we're bringing people in from all over the world. They were what we call branch chiefs, in charge of whole sections and so forth. So when I meet my wife, I find out it was her personality. One of the guys asked me after we met, and I said it was her personality. She's a bitch, man. It's like tough as nails. And I kind of find out later, she told me later on, that the guy who had my job at the Pentagon wasn't good. They retired him early. They got rid of him. But he was a womanizer.
Oh.
And she had been to this meeting the year before when he was at that meeting. And he was in charge of that meeting. And apparently he had said and done some things that just weren't appropriate, especially to her, and didn't want anything to do with it. And that made up her mind that anybody at the Pentagon must have been not very good. So she wanted nothing to do with me. And here I am trying to figure out how she survived, how a woman made it that far already in this career field and all. So over the course of the 2 weeks, we come to have a working relationship because we had to. She was the representative for all of the United States Air Forces in Europe, And if I needed anything for logistics, I had to go work through her. And if she needed anything from any of the other major commands or anything out of the Pentagon, she had to come through me. So it forced us to work together. And well, the rest is history. We've been together now, October will be 40 years. So lots of children and grandchildren, great grands and all. And I love that woman dearly. She really changed the direction of my life. So.
Yay. And we're going to be interviewing her next week. So I'm so excited, hopefully, if she's available. And so leaving the service, let's get back on track. Thank you for telling me about the story with your wife. I'm so happy to hear Donna, right?
Donna.
Yep. And so how about we'll go back to leaving the service. You were working at a security firm. And then what happened after that?
Well, national security, I stayed in that for 13 years. When you work for the president's cabinet, there is always something going on in the world. So you're working 24 hours a day, literally. It was a 24-hour a day job, and you never knew when you were going to be called in to a meeting because they needed support, or the government needed to do something that the government couldn't do, but you can because you're a private contractor. So there was a lot of those kinds of meetings and a lot of that stuff that we participated in and had to do or did things for the United States government that I'll never be able to talk about that stuff. That's just the arena I worked in. But I grew weary of it. It grew over time. It grew to the point where I was working 7 days a week. On most months, it was working every Saturday for sure. And every Sunday, and we were going. My wife and I would leave in the morning, leave the house about 6 a.m. We had an apartment just down from the Pentagon, so it was close to my job, which was right down from the Pentagon, my office and her office. She was working. By then, she had retired from the Air Force. She retired in '94 from the Air Force, also as a Chief Master Sergeant. She was the top 1% too. And in fact, to make sure, because she may not tell you, she was the first female in her AFSC or MOS to achieve E8 and then to achieve E9. First female to ever do that. So that shows you just how, well, it hits my heart.
Oh, man.
She was, why she was, 2 out of 500, because she was already special as an E7, but she was even more special as an E8 and an E9. So, did that and did it really well. But anyway, she then got a job through a best friend of both of ours, a guy who had been a lieutenant colonel. He was my partner at the Pentagon. When I was TDY, he was trying to manage all his programs and help me with mine. And when he was TDY, I was doing all of my programs and working his programs. So it was something he and I decided to do to try and lessen the impact while you're gone, having your money stolen and all of that stuff by other programs, So his name was Bob Meek, Lieutenant Colonel Bob Meek. Wonderful guy, one of my best friends in the world. I worked with him for 4 years at the Pentagon, a little over that. And Donna worked with him then at headquarters FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. I couldn't even think of the words. We called it by acronyms for so long. But she was working at the headquarters there in the contracting side. She was putting together all the contracts for equipment that keeps the airplanes online, so that they're checking in as they're flying. So she was helping keeping airplanes running into each other up there in the sky. And Bob Meek worked there as well. There's another story about him that I'll let her tell as well. But we worked together there, worked in many hours. She was working a lot of overtime as well. And after 13 years of that, 18 years in Washington, D.C., we just looked at each other one day and said, I don't want to do this anymore. Too many 7 days a week things that you had to do. It was very rewarding work, but it was 24-hour work. I had a big office with 20-something windows, leather couches, and all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you a story about my granddaughter, because it was impactful in me retiring, deciding to leave. But I used to tell people the reason you got all that leather couches and furniture in my office is to sleep on, because you can't go home tonight. You'd come to work and something would be going on in the world, and you just couldn't go home because you were on call to somebody important in the government that needed me to do something or have somebody go somewhere and do something and so forth. And we just grew weary of that. So I think I took 6 days vacation in 13 years. I got 30 days a month or 30 days a year, but just couldn't leave. The job was too important. You can't leave now. You know what's going on next week was always what you were hearing from your boss. And my boss was an ambassador. So 2-time ambassador, in fact. Anyway, so because I couldn't get out of my office in Washington, D.C., my oldest grandchild was only about 6 or 7 years old at that time. She's, 26 now, 26, almost 27, working on finishing her PhD. She's going to be a psychologist. So, yeah, awesome girl. Love her. Her name is Sarah. Sarah came to visit me, my daughter. We have 2 sons and a daughter. And from them, 7 grandkids and 2 great-grands. But my daughter brought Sarah to see me because she kept asking, God, makes my heart break. She kept asking to see her grandpa, and her grandpa just could not get away to do it. So my daughter brought her to see me in Washington, D.C. And of course, I'm working all the time, so she had to come to my office. And I had a big staff, and I always had a policy: if my door is open, my door is open, meaning if the door's open, you can come in. If the door's closed, I'm in a meeting and you need to wait. So my door was open that day, and the phone kept ringing, as it does. And I had a very large office, as I described. Well, one of the whiteboards was 30 feet long. You can imagine a wall of whiteboards, because we did a lot of meetings and a lot of diagramming and things in there. And the phone's ringing and the phone's ringing. And I see my granddaughter goes over to the whiteboard, and she's quite the little artist, really extraordinary artist. And she starts drawing on the board something, and the phone rings. And I think to myself, great, that'll keep her busy for a little bit. I'll take this phone call, and then her and I can go down to the kitchen area and so forth and get something to eat and spend a little time together. Oh, Lord. 45 minutes later, I see that she has built a scene, a town, and people 30 feet long, as high as she could reach. And I never saw her do it. I couldn't even be present with my own granddaughter because of work, because the phone kept ringing. I never saw her do it. That's when I knew we were done. We were done. I went home, talked to my wife. We quit. Literally, we gave them about 90 days notice.
Well, that was generous. 90 days. I mean, that's good.
Well, I had to find somebody to take my job and all of that. But August of 2003, we walked out. At that point, we had built a home on a farm in Pennsylvania. We had an 80-acre place on top of a mountain, but we went there to take care of family. Donna's mom, my parents were deceased already. Donna's mom was, and her brother was handicapped, and we knew they were going to need us forever. So we built a home in 2000 on the farm, and retired out of, too young to retire, actually, out of Washington, D.C., left in August of 2003. Donna's mom passed in late 2011. Donna's brother passed in 2000 and about 4 years ago. I can't remember the exact time.
Sorry.
2018.
I'm sorry.
So in 2018. So we had no reason after that to stay there. and it was awful cold, and I was real tired of cutting trees and splitting wood and shoveling and plowing snow and so forth. So we sold everything there and moved to the house we're in. I'm in Donna's office right now. In fact, mine is a mess. We're still moving in, still opening boxes and all that. But we live about an hour north of Tampa now, about 6 miles from the coast, so off the Gulf Coast. So 20 minutes from a sunset if we want, and love it. Love the house. We live in a golf course community. So I look at the fifth green out back. It's all green, and I don't mow it, so I love it. Our front yard was 7 acres on the farm, and we used to spend every Saturday on tractors, mowing stuff. And you go tired to that after a while. It was fun. It was great for, 25 years we lived there. But it was time to make this last move. So downsizing and perfect weather, and everything's green, and we love being in Florida.
So just really quick, I'm curious. So your wife was working 7 days a week, just like you, right?
Yeah, most of them. Maybe not all the Sundays, because a lot of what she did, she had to go to her office and do, and much of what she did, she had to interact with other people too. But yeah, she was working overtime and Saturdays. Yeah.
I hope y'all had a cleaning lady and private chefs at home, because I don't know how y'all took care of yourselves,
Well, speaking of food, we called it a hand sandwich. We would get home, usually you'd leave in the morning about 6 at the same time. And we were living up in Alexandria, Virginia, so we're really close for a shorter commute. We had lived for a time down in southern Maryland, and the commute just became too arduous, hour and a half each way each day, and all that was crazy. So we sold houses and got an apartment and lived in a condo up in Alexandria, so that we had a short commute. But we would leave in the morning, and then we would see each other again that night, usually somewhere between 7 and 10 p.m. So when we'd meet, you're so darn tired, you were too tired to make dinner or even go out to dinner. So we'd open the fridge, grab a piece of meat and a piece of cheese, slap it on your hand, and eat it and go to bed. And do it again. And we called it a hand sandwich. And we lived that way for several years. It's really what it took. And when we did eat out, we ate at restaurants with other people, usually clients or somebody from the government or something. And we would have dinner meetings and such. And so we're eating really late. I mean, we're talking 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock dinner meetings and things. So you're not, I was in poorer health. I was gaining weight. So was she. It just really wasn't a good life for us. And my granddaughter was the last straw.
Yeah, thank you so much for your sacrifice and service. That is a lot that you did for our country, man. And I'm so glad you left for your granddaughter, though. Enough is enough. And so after let's see. So I'm sorry, I kind of took you back, so I'll come forward again. So after the security company, I think I lost track what you did after that.
Did nothing for a while, 5 years, literally worked on the farm, improving the farm, clearing lanes, making fire roads and so forth in the 80 acres. So it was really decompression.
Nice.
When at the level I was in the government, if somebody at the White House made the final decision on things. So there was never a final decision till you got a final decision. And the saying I had was that when I was mowing, I had a big tractor, giant tractors and mowers and tillers, and Donna had a huge 2-acre garden and so forth. So we were doing that stuff, eating good, eating healthy, garden to table and all.
Yeah.
But I'd go out and mow for 8 hours, reclaiming land that nature wanted to take back. Mm-hmm. And my satisfaction was when I looked at it, it was done. I made the decision. It wasn't going to be changed. And so it was very satisfying in that regard that whatever I decided to do today was going to contribute to me. It wasn't going to be changed in any way, sped up, done later, nothing. So for 5 years, it was very satisfying and decompressing, just working a farm. We didn't have any animals. We had German Shepherd dogs, loved them and trained them and did a lot with them. But it was about really building the house. I completely finished the basement, put in a bedroom, bathroom, office, a huge rec room, a bar, and a bunch of things. Donna and I and her mother and brother finished off the upstairs. So it was a 3-story farmhouse. And we had it built with the middle level, the ground level done, and then had a walkout basement that we finished. And then the second store, we finished all of that too. So we hung sheetrock, did the wiring, did the plumbing, did all of that during that 5-year period as well. And it was very, very satisfying. Hard work, good work. And her and I working together as a team. I built it, wired it, did the plumbing, and then we hung the sheetrock, and then she did all the mudding, all the painting, all the finish work on it, and so forth. So very satisfying.
Thank goodness. That sounds so great for you all to get out of that work environment you had in the military. That is just, I feel like y'all were in jail. So it's great that you got out of there. You got to, like you say, decompress, and you were in control of that land. Y'all really needed that. I'm glad you got to have that experience. That's amazing. So you moved from that farm, because after a while you told me you did get tired of the mowing, right? So that's when you went.
Yeah. Every Saturday, 8 hours on a tractor, whether you needed to or not. And if you missed it, we're talking our front yard. And if you missed it, it was going to be about 15 inches tall the next week. So you really needed to mow it, on a regular schedule, or it got so tall, you had to rake it. You had to pick up all the grass because it would kill the grass. There was so much on it. So, wow. Yeah, after a while, that became a burden, not a chore.
Yeah. So that was when you went to Florida? No, you went somewhere in between.
No, we moved from there to Florida.
Okay.
We'd spent 2 or 3 looking at houses, really designing what we liked. Looked at a lot of houses, but with no intent to buy in North Carolina. We did have a home in North Carolina during part of that, from 2012 to 2018, 5 years. We owned a lake house in Florida as well. Had an apartment that we refinished in the bottom for her brother. By then her mother had passed, but her brother needed us. So we bought a house and had an apartment put in the bottom for him so he could be with us when we were in North Carolina. And we went there for business, and I'll talk a little bit about that business in a bit. We started that in 2008, but the move to Florida was really after 3.5, 4 years of looking at houses and picking out, we like that, we like that, we like that, we don't like that. I would never want to live in something like that. And it was helping us just design what a forever house would look like. Where could we go that would meet our needs physically as we grow older and so forth, and yet be enjoyable, have enough space that we get to do all the things we want to do and so forth. And so we settled on this house, watched it for a year in a golf course community, watched the price come down and come down. They had refurbished the house, redid the kitchen, did a lot to it. But it was out of our price range for a while. And finally, we kept watching, and it hit a price point that the showings went way up. Now it's attractive to everybody. And by then we knew who the agent was. So we're on the phone with her saying, yeah. And she said, okay, we got 4 or 5 showings this weekend. And I said, well, we're coming down. We'll be there. And we gave her a date and so forth. So we had a house that appeared to have everything we wanted, but we hadn't physically seen it. That was just online, And so we decided it was time to go see it. And we had ordered a new car. We had picked up a car in South Carolina, BMW factory. So we drove it straight to Florida, off the showroom floor there, and looked at the house and said, yeah, I think this is probably what we want. and went back home, made the decision to sell our house there, the farmhouse. We already had people knocking on the door wanting to buy it. And so we had broken the 80 acres into 2 tracts. So we sold that house, the farmhouse on 20 acres, bought the house or put a deposit on the house with a decision to come down and close in late September. By that time, it was still July. So we set the closing up on my wife's birthday, September 29th, so that she got a good birthday present. And then we still needed to finish moving. We closed on the house, but we hadn't moved out of the house yet. We were using something called pods. And because we were so remote, if you wanted to go to Sam's Club, for example, where we shopped, it was a 100-mile round trip from the farm. If you wanted to go to dinner, it was a 100-mile round trip. If you wanted to go put gas in your car, it was a 40-mile round trip. So we were very remote, which we loved when we first went there. But it grew old as well. Lots of high mileage on the cars and so forth. And so when we chose the house in Florida and we were trying to move, we were using a system called pods. You may have seen them on trucks around town. They're white containers. It says pods, P-O-D-S. And what you do is they bring you a pod anywhere up to 16 feet long, 8 by 8 by 16. You fill it, you put the lock on it, they pick up the pod, they take it to a storage place, and then you drive down there. And then when you get where you know where you're going, you call them and they deliver the pods and they bring them to you. So we were so remote, we could only get 1 or 2 pods at a time and only once a week. So, we had lots of stuff. That meant we were weeks and weeks and weeks away from getting it all physically moved out of there. Fortunately, the young couple that bought our house didn't need it right away, and they weren't married yet. They were getting married. So they were extremely gracious and let us stay in that house until, July. So it was July before we got moved out of the house. And then we had a huge 12-car garage there that held a lot of stuff that we owned. We used to live when I was in Washington by the motto, he who has the most toys when he dies wins. So we were buying everything. We owned boats and motorcycles and RVs. We had a 40-foot bus. We had everything you can imagine. Lots of cars, cool cars, BMWs and Mercedes and all of that kind of stuff. And 2 Harleys and lots of toys, tons of toys. And we enjoyed them for 25 years. It was a great life on the farm and getting to play with all the toys. But we needed to downsize when we came here. I woke up one winter and realized I had 24 engines that I needed to prepare for winter because we had so many toys, things that just need to be serviced and so forth, to get them ready for winter or get them ready for spring or put them to bed for the winter and that kind of stuff. And it's like, what have I done? It's like, oh my gosh. So we started selling things and simplifying our life. And in that process, decided it really was time to move on. And finding that house, finally that house showed up on the radar and had all the qualities of all the houses that we loved, but never found a house that had it all. And here, this one pops up. And so that's when we knew it was time to go. And we live there now, love this house, just not quite finished moving in. Still got boxes in my office and in the garage. But we did get 2 cars in the garage and 2 motorcycles. We downsized all the toys, boats gone, motorhomes gone, the Mercedes is gone, and we got rid of one of the BMWs and bought another one. And so we have our truck, which is Donna's truck. She'll have to tell you about her story about her avalanche, extraordinary story, but how she got that. But anyway, we kept two of those, a pickup truck, because you got to have a truck, and X7 that we bought new. And then she has a Harley and I have a Harley as well. So So we're into a 3.5 car garage now from a 12 car. So it truly is downsizing, and it was time to do that.
I took some notes really quick. I don't want to forget to ask her those questions next week. You say you still have the motorcycle, so you still got the two Harleys? Y'all ride together, you and Donna?
Yeah, she hasn't ridden for a while because she had messed up her knee,
Oh.
and then she broke her arm not too long ago. So she hasn't ridden in a couple of years now. And I ended up with a medical condition that I haven't ridden since May 28th, but who's counting, you know? But I'm at the point where I'll be riding in a week or so.
I got to hear at least one good story about a Donna and Jim ride. Where y'all go? What happened? You know, are you guys like traveling around when you go riding, or what do you do?
Well, I like to ride in the country, and so does she. So we don't ride in traffic. We have before. We used to ride in what was called Rolling Thunder. If you're familiar with that, both of us being veterans, of course, and me being a Vietnam veteran, we would ride to the wall every year on Memorial Day. And literally over 100,000 motorcycles would ride into Washington, D.C. Thus, it got the name Rolling Thunder, because that's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
You bring 100,000 motorcycles into town, it's a rumble, really. And we would all ride, escort the government and some people with wreaths that we would lay in there. We were part of the Combat Veterans Association, laying a wreath at the wall, the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C. Gosh, if you haven't been to the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C., you have to go there. It is one of the most moving monuments in the world. That's all I can say about it. But Donna had never ridden a motorcycle. At 55 years old, I was going to sell our first motorcycle. It was a Harley. It was a small Harley, not one of the big dresser jobs. And it was the first one we bought. And I was ready to move up and buy a bigger one. And I was going to sell the other one. I don't need two. I can't ride two at once, you know. So I told her I'm going to sell it. And she said, "You can't sell it. It's our first Harley. You know, we have to keep it." And it was a 2003 that I had bought with a bonus check back in 2003 before we left Washington. So it was a 2003 anniversary model. It was a special paint job and all that stuff.
Oh.
And I said, well, the only way we're keeping that is you got to learn to ride it, because I can't ride two.
Yes,
She had
I love
never
it.
a motorcycle before. She had ridden a little scooter, but nothing big.
Yeah.
So at 55 years old, she takes a motorcycle riding course and gets her driver's license. And it's like her first bike was a Harley. So not a bad start. And really, literally within, she could probably tell you the exact day, but I would say a few weeks after she got her license and so forth. And we had been out a few times on her Harley, so she was getting comfortable with it. We rode to a Harley Davidson motorcycle, a Harley owners group meeting that was about 150 miles away down in Richmond, Virginia. And we're living up in Washington, D.C., so however far that was. And we were riding with some hog people, Harley owners group. That's a thing. There's a bunch of them that get together just to eat and ride together. And so we decided to go to this meeting down in Richmond, where there was going to be like 10 or 15,000 coming together for this meeting and so forth. So we were riding down there. So Donna rode in the traffic all the way down there to that meeting, like just a few weeks after she got her license. So she had a bath of fire, you know, learning to ride that thing in a group riding and so forth, which is it's a little bit like the Thunderbirds, like the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels, right? Flying close together. Riding close together is a whole nother skill that you have to acquire, and keeping the same speed and all of that, because if one person goes down, they're all going down. So it's important. She learned it quickly. But after that, most of our riding was in the country, especially in Pennsylvania, because there's so many beautiful country roads, and I love the long needle pines and so forth. And so we would go riding around the lake, do 2, 3 hours, 4 hours, just riding together, her and I.
And did you go camping or stay at hotels, or were they day rides? Or
Most of them were day rides. When we'd go out of town, it was always a hotel because you couldn't. I had to drive the RV, so I couldn't ride the motorcycle. We did have a trailer, and we could have put them in the trailer, which we would tow with the truck, and taken them and the RV. But we rarely did that. Usually, when we went camping, we were into camping and camping fires, and we would take the boat because we could go camping at the lake.
Got it.
It was a lake about 45 minutes away, and Donna would drive the Avalanche and tow the boat, and I would drive the motorhome up. And then we would stay a week, 10 days, whatever, up there, and friends would all come and stay. And with our business, we had a home-based business, we would do fun days, just fun time together, and we'd invite people to come up and stay for the whole week. And we might have 15, 20 people come up and stay at the lake for a week, and we'd be teaching them how to ski, going for boat rides. And we had good friends. Laura Munson and her husband would bring their boat up as well. So we had 2 boats where we'd ride together, ski together, tube together, and all that kind of stuff. So lots of fun. And that was our summers in Pennsylvania.
Nice. What
Yeah.
are you working on any current projects right now other than moving? I know you're moving, but anything volunteer work or extracurricular hobbies? What do you do in your free time?
Well, we're part of the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association. It's a combat veterans group. They have members who served in the military but may not have served in combat. And Donna was one of those because she didn't actually go to combat because she was at the headquarters, and they weren't about to let her out of the headquarters to go to a field unit. Her job was too important. So she was at the headquarters in Air Combat Command, in charge of all the equipment and accessories and so forth that needed to go to combat, and that was her job. Her boss wasn't about to let her leave and go to a field unit. So she's what's called a combat supporter. She's part of the combat vets group, and that's where we spend our time. We have weekly meetings. We ride just for fellowship. We go bowling together, go to parties, Christmas parties, things like that. But it's all combat veterans, and we spend a lot of time in fellowship because there's a lot of veterans that still have trouble today, still have PTSD. My brother is one of them and has just ruined his life after Vietnam. He was a Marine in July and got blown up pretty badly, thrown about 40 yards through the air in an explosion and so forth, but lived through it. But anyway, he had really bad PTSD. Still does. He was the one that I went to visit last month that I mentioned, visiting siblings, and we went to visit my brother as well, who lives on a 40-acre ranch on top of a mountain, and he has 8-foot fences around it with 10,000 volts because of his PTSD. He just can't deal with people, be with people, or be around people now. So this combat veterans group that we're a member of spends a lot of time with veterans. Whether they come to our meetings or not, we'll go see them. They call it brotherhood or fellowship, and we'll put together a ride on motorcycles so you have some fun to go see 2 or 3 or 4 brothers or sisters that we haven't seen in a while, that we just need to go provide some fellowship and just spend some time with them. So we do a lot of that during the months. You know, we have our meetings, very short meetings and so forth. We also raise money for veterans, do a lot of things like we just installed a flagpole for a veteran that didn't have a flag. And so we got them the right kind of flagpole, a standalone and all of that. We put in ramps. A lot of veterans are in wheelchairs now or walkers and things. And they live in houses that need ramps, you know, so that they can get up those things. So we build ramps for them. And, you know, you just we have rewired houses. We have, because we were in the combat vets group when we were on the farm too. So we had Pennsylvanians and Marylanders up there that needed help, and we did a lot of things for them as well. We did a lot of fundraising events. Oftentimes, you may be paying the mortgage for a veteran that's about to get ousted out. And so our chapters would pay their mortgage for 60 or 90 days or something to give them a chance to get back on their feet or whatever. So it's good to know there's a lot of groups like that, not just the ones we're in. There are other groups that are very worthy as well. But as veterans, gosh, we encourage you, all veterans, all services, all armed forces, in fact, to go find a veterans group and find one that is supporting veterans right now, because Lord knows there's millions that need our help. Millions.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes we have to reach out to them. Like, for example, my husband, he needed a lot of help. Anyway, I won't get into all that, but he wasn't the kind of person to go get it. And I think there's a lot of veterans like that, like where you need to come to them and talk to them. And I don't know, that's my whole thing. That's why I'm doing this. And yeah, anyway, it's not my story, but real quick, a plug for, I hope that you can see this just for everyone else too. This is a group called the Till Valhalla Project. And it's something that AJ, who founded this nonprofit, believes in very much. And they deal a lot with, veteran suicide and things like that. So it's right along with what we're talking about. It's called the Till Valhalla Project. We always have a link on every of these interviews. Good. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, it's great that you're doing the combat veterans, and I'm glad AJ is promoting that group as well. So it's good stuff. You're going to make me cry now. I'm going to have a hard time getting back on track. So the next thing we're going to talk about is let's see. Oh, we have the rapid fire questions, but I just wanted to ask a little bit more about your granddaughter and your family, because I know you wanted to talk about that. So I don't want to get too close to the end of this meeting without talking more about your kids and your kids and your family.
I won't go through all the kids because it's
too many,
time consuming. But we just spent some time in California, as I said. We were actually out there for siblings' funerals. But we have the opportunity to get all of our kids together, which is hard to do. They're still working and so forth, most of them, but we got them all together and their spouses together, and then some of the grandkids and great-grands came together as well. So it was a great opportunity. We were checking into the hospital or the hotel. I mentioned the same name earlier about James Chambers because I'm James Russell Chambers. My son is James Russell Chambers, Roman numeral 2. His son is James Russell Chambers, Roman numeral 3. And we're trying to check into a hotel, James Chambers on all the credit cards. Well, they think it's an error and they want to delete 2 of the rooms. It's like, no, it was about 45 minutes getting us checked in and the room straightened out so that we all got the rooms that we had purchased and so forth. But it's a good problem. It's a great problem when you can get together with family and multiple generations. We have a text group, of course, who doesn't, but one of the text groups is called 3 Generations of Chambers. And now it's 4 generations of Chambers are in that group. So my kids' and my kids' kids and so forth. So just a great opportunity to stay in contact. Keep contact with them one way or another, however they do it. And rarely is it the way we used to do it. Communication means have changed so much in so many different ways. But my gosh, my plug would be keep communicating because it's so worth it. They need to hear from you. Having this recording for them to go to and learn more about what their great or grandparents did, is going to be fantastic. So I'm really pleased for that. And the last thing I would plug, we started it in 2008, a little side business. It's a home business, if you will. And it's a travel business. We're in the travel industry. We provide a travel club for people that want to travel wholesale. And they travel all over the world. We do trips all over the world. We were just in Italy on a trip that we had put together. In fact, took some people to Italy. We took, I think we had 90 people there. We had 90 rooms, let me say that. Two 45 packs buses and so forth. So We do little trips, single trips, solo family trips, all the way up to trips that might have 3, 4, 5,000 people on them, where we take over whole resorts and we book every room in the resort. So if you can name it in the travel industry, we do it, but we do it wholesale.
What's the name of your company again?
We are called Viago, Viago, Viago.
.com. What's the website?
Well, if you could go to viago.com, but you would have to come to one of us. What you do is just come to me on my cell phone number, 717-658-0234.
One more time. Let's say that number.
717-658-0234.
Cool.
And what we do is figure out what you're interested in, because there's many parts to it, and share with you whatever's appropriate, because there's a business part that isn't for everybody. There's a travel only part, and then there's a way to do both and so forth. And we want to not waste your time. We want to just show you what you're interested in and nothing else. So that's how we do it.
So some of it is organizing trips. And what's the business part?
Well, you don't organize them. Our company does the organizing.
Okay.
You lead them. You may have team members and so forth. So we're leaders in the organization. We're trainers for the company, business trainers. There is a business part to it, and we teach people how to grow a business, a homemade business, home-based business. And then we go have fun. And when we go, we have teams of people that we have built, and they travel with us. And so we lead those teams on trips and so forth. We teach others how to lead trips, small trips. And maybe 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 people want to go, or something like that. Or maybe it's a high school reunion that wants to go and meet someplace. We do all that kind of stuff, and we teach people how to do that.
VIAGO.
VIAGO.com, which means
Viago.
The way to go.
I get it now. Viago, like Viago. Viago.
Viago. Yeah.
Love it. Thanks for that plug. Yes, I should have told you that before when we were talking about these interviews. We love to plug veteran businesses. So I'm so glad you did that. Excuse me. I guess we'll go into the rapid fire questions now.
Okay.
1 second. Apologize. Okay, so veteran questions. Where's my brain? I have to go to sorry. I'm not as good at this as Mr. AJ is, but I will be there. Okay, here it is. What is your proudest military moment?
Gosh, that was probably hitting the top rank when I achieved it. It had been a goal for, 16 years. So I hit it in that 16, 17 year mark. And it was, I was very, very proud of that. Still am. It's a club, a 1% club.
Yeah. I'm so honored to interview you. I hope the other archivists are jealous. I'm so stoked to interview you and Donna. What is your most embarrassing military moment? Here's the question.
Oh gosh, most embarrassing. That's probably basic training, which we've talked about. When I got called out of the flight and ordered to walk like a duck, get down on almost with your butt dragging the ground, quacking and so forth. And it wasn't like do it 2 or 3 little quacks. No, I was quacking all the way around the whole flight. And he kept me going for about 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah, because I walked like a duck. I marched like a duck. So yeah, that was probably it. I never live that one down in basic training at all. And I quit talking about it real quick. So that's probably the most embarrassing.
People probably razzed you like so much, right?
Yeah, quack, quack, quack.
Yeah.
Every time I'd walk in the room, quack, quack, quack.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
If you could be one military leader for a day, who would that be?
Oh, gosh. Wow. At this point in time, there's a lot of things going on that the public's not aware of. They're very necessary. I would be in a forward control unit, leading a forward control unit, in a combat zone. That's where I'd be.
Oh man. The next question is, what is one lesson or skill you learned that you still use today?
Oh goodness, leadership. All the how to lead, how to grow. Going through all the PME, and then now we teach leadership because it's one of the things that our industry is noted for. Is personal development is what we call it now, but it's really leadership training, personal growth training, and so forth. Becoming the person, the best version of you possible, and becoming the best leader of others who want to become the best version of themselves. How do you do that? Well, we teach that. It's one of the things my wife and I have become proficient about, that I'm most proud of, and raising other leaders up, watching them. It's like watching your kids graduate from college. When your other leaders rise up and now they have their own teams and they're leading, using the skills and implementing the skills and all. It's such a gratifying moment, person by person by person, teaching somebody. And when you see the light bulb goes on and they just light up and they finally get it, and now they've got that skill and they're able to execute it and all. Love that. I love teaching and training, helping others. I'm on this earth to support or help other people, to give, right? To give things and to grow. And so my two greatest needs are personal growth and helping others, whether that means money or time or skills or whatever. So my life is really satisfying to me, because when I'm doing what I do best, I'm meeting the two needs that I need to achieve the most to be personally happy. So I'm pretty fortunate. I wasn't always like that, not at all. I had to do a lot of growing to get to that point, a lot of awakening, a lot of others that helped me along the way. I didn't do it on my own. I had great mentors along the way that chose to help me or responded when I asked for help and so forth, to take me to another level and take me to another level and just keep doing that. And now I would do that the rest of my life, and help anybody else that wants to do that too.
I love that. We definitely need more of that. I just really quick, I had one coworker once at a place I worked, and he's like, I'm not going to help you with anything because nobody helped me. So figure it out. And that made me want to be a better leader. I was like, wow. So yeah, it's really good what you're doing. It's really important. I appreciate you so much. The next question is the zombie apocalypse, I can't talk. In a zombie apocalypse, why can't I talk?
Apocalypse.
Thank you. In the zombie apocalypse, what would be your weapon of choice and what anthem would be playing?
Jeez. Well, I never was a zombie apocalypse watcher. I know what it is. At least I think I do.
Bunch of zombies are walking towards you, trying to kill you and kill everybody. So it's kind of like any battle zone, really.
I would have a disappearing ray. So my weapon would be a gun that zaps you and they disappear as soon as I hit you. So I could get rid of them as fast as I needed to. And what anthem? Gosh. Probably the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
They have a song that I play all the time. And for whatever dumb reason, it's escaping me right now.
Look it up if you want on your Spotify. Know the song.
Gosh. Well, I don't have Spotify.
Oh, or whatever. Apple.
But I do have a music list.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in fine print. Start Me Up. It's Rolling Stones, Start Me Up. And coincidentally, because you listen to the words, it's one of those I'll never stop. I'll never stop. Once you get me started, I will never stop. And one of the things in our training sessions, when you go on a stage before hundreds of people and so forth, they almost always announce you with a song of some kind. That's my song. Every time I go on a stage, the Rolling Stones Start Me Up plays. So
nice.
that would be my apocalypse music as well.
Love it. Thank you, Jim. And then this next question is, what animal best describes your time in the service?
A lion, because I roared a lot.
I love it.
I was always hungry, and I roared. People knew I was there.
That's how you got where you got. That's awesome. And then knowing what you know now, would you do it all over again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No regrets. Everything was a growth opportunity in my life. Some didn't turn out well, but it was still a growth opportunity. The reason I went into service was to get away from something I had created that wasn't going well. And so it led me in the right direction, the opposite way. So I see my entire life has been like that. I've learned so much and I grow. There's so many, every time something happens, you have a growth opportunity. My goodness, I wouldn't change any of that. It made me who I am.
Well said. I love that. And then what words of wisdom would you have for our listeners today? Excuse me.
Oh my goodness, you need to read a good book. Too many people quit reading or haven't read a good book. And when I say that, I don't mean a faith book. Certainly it could be, but I mean a book that will enlighten you or entertain you or grow you. But read and write. Cursive, the process of using cursive engages multiple parts of the brain. If you are typing on a computer and you're printing, you do not engage those parts of your brain. Cursive writing is being lost. It's good to know now there's, I think, 40-something states are requiring it again. Thank God that we're going to start teaching cursive again. It was only one of my grandchildren that came to me and said I couldn't read a card I had written to him. So like, what do you mean you can't read it? The kid was like 10 or 12 years old. Well, they don't teach cursive in school. I think, oh my God, how could we have let that go? So read and write. Find a good book and read it. Read 30 minutes of a good book every single day, 7 days a week, and write your notes out. Write notes, love notes to your spouse or your children or your grandchildren, but handwrite those because they mean so much when they get them, and it will help your brain at the same time.
I'm glad you told me that about cursive. I didn't realize that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That was so great interviewing you, Jim. Gosh, and if you ever want to come back, please, you're welcome. AJ lets people come back as much as they want to. If you have more stories you forgot or anything you want to share, we'd be glad to have you. We're so blessed that you came and spoke with us today. And the only thing I have to say is heroes, they don't wear capes, they wear dog tags.